Deep within the Jordanian desert lies a hidden passage to the ancient past, where towering 80-meter cliffs stand as silent guardians over a long-lost desert kingdom. The vibrant sandstone walls shift from rose-pink to deep orange, showing that no 2 points on these ancient cliffs share the exact same hue or geological pattern. As we walk this path, shadows stretch across the canyon floor, marking a journey into a mystery that was once forgotten by the outside world for centuries. The deep ruts etched into the stone floor tell a story of thousands of merchant caravans that once carried precious silks and spices through this very corridor. Looking upward, the massive rock faces nearly touch, leaving only a thin ribbon of blue sky to guide us through this overwhelming and majestic natural limestone fortress. This winding corridor served as a natural defensive wall, protecting a civilization that once controlled the most lucrative trade routes of the entire known ancient world. The echoes of camel bells and footsteps remind us that this silent canyon was once the pulsing heart of a wealthy empire that dominated the Arabian desert. Along the walls, we see the remnants of sophisticated engineering, where the Nabataeans carved precise channels to bring life-sustaining water into their secret, flourishing desert capital. Each beam of light that strikes the red dust creates a golden aura, as if the desert itself is trying to reveal the hidden glory of Petra. To touch these walls is to touch history, feeling the cold, hard reality of a kingdom that disappeared from human memory for over 500 long years. Our journey through the darkness is nearly over as a sliver of magnificent architecture begins to emerge from the shadows of the deep and narrow Seek. Emerging from the darkness, Al-Khazneh appears like a magnificent dream, its radiant golden facade carved directly into the heart of the mountain with unbelievable ancient precision. This iconic structure stands 40 meters tall, a breathtaking testament to a civilization that did not build with bricks but sculpted their empire from the mountain's bones. Notice the intricate details of Greek gods and local motifs, representing a unique cultural crossroads where the East met the West in the middle of the desert. The treasury was not constructed from the bottom up. It was meticulously carved from the top down, a reverse engineering feat that remains a marvel to architects. Every mark on these walls represents the tireless hands of ancient masons who spent decades transforming a sheer cliff face into a royal masterpiece for their kings. Standing in this plaza, one feels incredibly small against the backdrop of a building that is taller than a modern 13-story apartment complex, all made of stone. And imagine the daring engineers of old, hanging from ropes at the mountain's peak, slowly chipping away tons of rock to reveal the beautiful facade hidden inside. Legend once claimed the stone urn at the top held a hidden treasure, but in reality, this entire city was the true wealth of the Nabataean people. But Al-Khazneh is merely the grand gateway to a much larger story, as a vast city of 30,000 people lies just beyond this iconic stone monument. The city expands into a valley of red rock, where hundreds of homes, tombs, and public buildings were carved directly into the steep and rugged canyon walls. These stepped designs were unique to the Nabataeans, symbolizing a staircase to heaven for the souls of the departed in this sacred city of the dead. Nature provided the paint, and the Nabataeans provided the canvas, using the multicolored veins of the sandstone to create interiors that look like abstract, swirling paintings. As the sun dips lower, the city transforms. The red rock glowing with an intensity that explains why this place was called the Rose City of Antiquity. We now enter the heart of social life, where a massive theater carved from a single hillside could once host over 8,000 spectators for ancient performances. Even their entertainment was monumental, as the Nabataeans chose to carve their entire theater out of solid rock rather than building it with traditional stone blocks. Thousands of years of wind and rain have softened the edges of these stone seats, where ancient citizens once gathered to watch dramas and political ceremonies. High above the main street, the royal tombs dominate the skyline, their grand facades reflecting the immense wealth and power of the Nabataean kings and queens. The urn tomb, with its massive arched vaults, stands as a reminder of how this desert tribe evolved from simple nomads into master architects and world-class engineers. And walking down the colonnaded street, we see the influence of the Roman Empire, which eventually arrived to trade and coexist with this wealthy desert trade hub. Petra was a city of fountains and gardens, a true oasis where water flowed freely in a region that sees almost no rain for most of the year. The Great Temple was the center of religious and political life, a massive complex that once stood as a symbol of the city's spiritual and commercial success. The Nabataeans were also master artisans, producing pottery so thin and delicate that it was sought after by the elites of Rome and Alexandria alike. At its peak, Petra was home to a diverse population of 30,000 people, living in a city that was virtually invisible from the outside desert. But the true genius of the city was not just in its beautiful carvings, but in its ability to survive and thrive in an extremely harsh environment. In this parched landscape, survival depended on a single resource more valuable than gold or spices. And that resource was the mastery of water. Without water, no civilization could last here for a day. The Nabataeans, however, found a way to conquer the drought and turn the desert green. They engineered a hidden network of terracotta pipes and stone channels that captured every single drop of rain and spring water from the surrounding mountains. When rare flash floods struck, the Nabataeans didn't fear the water. They harvested it, directing the surge into massive underground reservoirs for later use. They built dams to protect their city and sophisticated filters to ensure their drinking water was clean, showcasing engineering skills that rival modern plumbing systems. With a capacity to store over 12 million liters of water, Petra was a hydrated fortress that could withstand years of drought or prolonged enemy sieges. This water allowed them to host the great caravans carrying frankincense, myrrh, and spices from the heart of Arabia to the hungry markets of the Mediterranean. Petra became the world's most profitable middleman, taxing every ounce of luxury that passed through their gates, turning simple nomads into the wealthiest traders of antiquity. From the burning sands of the south, the wealth of the world flowed into this canyon, making Petra a cosmopolitan hub of art, culture, and extreme luxury. The kings of Petra were masters of diplomacy and trade, building a peaceful empire that relied on commerce rather than conquest to achieve its legendary status. But as trade routes shifted and the Roman Empire expanded, the very source of Petra's power began to slowly erode, like the soft sandstone of its walls. To see the final chapter of this empire, we must climb 800 steep steps to the highest point of the city, toward the majestic Ad-Dir. The climb is grueling, but it offers a perspective of the entire kingdom, showing the sheer scale of the landscape the Nabataeans once called their own. At the summit, the air grows thin and the wind howls through the rocks, preparing the traveler for the sight of Petra's largest and most remote monument. Ad-Dir, the monastery, stands in silent majesty. It is even larger than the treasury, measuring 50 meters wide and nearly 45 meters in height. Unlike the treasury, its carvings are simpler and bolder, yet its sheer presence at the top of a mountain is a terrifyingly beautiful display of human ambition. The urn atop this structure is large enough to house a small room, a giant stone beacon that could be seen from miles away across the desert. Inside, the chamber is vast and empty, suggesting it may have been a royal tomb or a sacred site for religious ceremonies before the city's decline. Looking closely, we see parts that were never finished, and a haunting sign that the Nabataean dream was interrupted before it could reach its final completion. The end came not with a bang, but a whisper. As Rome developed sea routes, the land caravans became obsolete, and Petra's wealth began to dry up. Then, in the year 363, a massive earthquake shattered the city's vital water systems and brought many of its grand structures to the ground. Slowly, the people began to leave. The fountains stopped flowing, the markets fell silent, and the desert began to reclaim the streets of the Rose City. By the 14th century, Petra had vanished from all Western maps, becoming a ghost city known only to the local Bedouin tribes who kept its location secret. For 500 years, one of the greatest wonders of the ancient world lay hidden in plain sight, protected by the mountains and a code of silence. The Bedouin people became the sole guardians of this stone treasure, living in the caves and preserving the memory of the city through their oral traditions. In 1812, a Swiss explorer named Johann Burckhardt disguised himself as an Arab scholar to trick his way into the Forbidden Valley of the ancients. When he stepped out of the sick and saw the treasury, he knew he had rediscovered a legend, though he had to hide his excitement to survive. His discovery shocked the world, and Petra was reborn, transforming from a forgotten legend into one of the most visited archaeological sites on the entire planet. Today, millions of people walk where the spice merchants once trod, seeking to understand the mystery of how a desert tribe built such an enduring empire. The Bedouins are still here, the living link to Petra's past, still sharing the stories of the stone city that their families protected for half a millennium. When night falls, Petra returns to its ancient roots. Thousands of candles illuminate the treasury, casting flickering shadows that seem to bring the stone to life. The soft glow reveals the faces of the gods carved into the rock, watching over the city as they have done for over 2,000 silent years. Under the vast desert stars, the city feels eternal, a monument to human ingenuity and the unbreakable spirit of those who chose to live among the rocks. Petra reminds us that even the greatest empires may vanish, but the beauty they create can endure long after their names have been forgotten by history. The stone does not lie, and the stone does not forget. It carries the marks of every chisel and the echoes of every voice that once filled this valley. As a new day begins, the Rose City glows again, a timeless masterpiece of architecture and engineering that continues to defy the harshness of the surrounding desert. Leaving Petra is like waking from a dream, and a journey through a corridor of time that leaves us changed by the majesty of what we have seen. It is a testament to the fact that where there is water, intelligence, and will, even the most barren desert can be turned into a lasting paradise. The mystery of the Nabataeans remains partially unsolved, buried in the sand and the red stone, waiting for the next generation of explorers to uncover its truths. Petra, the city carved from red stone, stands as the eternal bridge between our world and a magnificent past that will never be forgotten again.